Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. After Toto Wolff's latest attempt to secure Max Verstappen's signature and future at Mercedes, Max has now responded to these claims and says no, he will be staying at Red Bull for the future, but the way that he says it isn't quite as emphatic as Christian Horner and others in that organisation may have liked. Much to talk about today. Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. It of course is the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. We have two big driver announcements today. Well, one of them is no surprise at all, or, well, let's just talk about it, shall we? Lance Stroll, he's back, baby, and it's not just a one-year deal. We know how it works with Lance Stroll. It's just an eternal deal. It doesn't matter. If he wants to stay, he's going to stay. It is how it is. As long as Lance Stroll's in charge, he's going to be there. So, no real surprise. It's now been made official that the Alonso-Stroll partnership will be a partnership into the new cycle of regulations 2026 and beyond. They haven't really said. We know how it is. I don't need to talk about it again. The only thing that I will say on this is the whole Adrian Newey rumour, right? Because Newey has been linked to a couple of teams, mainly Ferrari, we'll discuss more in a second, but also Aston Martin. There were recent rumours emerging in the last couple of weeks, as there were actually several months ago, that Newey was definitely a target for Aston Martin, and they gave him a tour of the factory, all this type of stuff. Newey probably will return to the sport as well. That is the feeling that we currently have. And even Lance Stroll says that he's the greatest of all time. He's got more championships than Eddie B in the paddock. It'd be great to have him on board. But does Newey, given the fact that whatever job he takes now is probably going to be his last job in the sport, is he going to look at Aston Martin and say, wow, that's a serious team? You know, they really take these championships seriously, still employing Lance Stroll. Let's be real, I don't think that Newey will think that way, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Apparently, Newey signed like an option with Ferrari, which kind of gave the parties the possibility of continuing that relationship more long term, that apparently expires at the end of July. But it seems very much likely that Newey and Ferrari is close, if not already a done deal. They want to ensure that Newey's got the autonomy to work from home or be at Maranello if he wants to be. There's still some details to be resolved, but I think especially for Newey, if those were the two options he was looking at, and now Aston have confirmed that Stroll will stay, and they seem like they're on a pretty severe decline, I think the decision for Newey, if he is to make one, is rather straightforward. This is the other confirmation though on Pierre Gasly. Gasly was actually quite, well, the way that he talked about Alpine in recent weeks wasn't full of confidence about the future of the organisation, but apparently they've done some things, and to be fair, they've made good progress with this year's car. Still not great, but it started the year literally the worst car on the grid. Overweight, slow, ugly as well. Okay, it's not got any prettier, but it is a bit faster nowadays, and they are committing with Gasly for the future. This, I think, is an excellent decision. Ocon is gone, causes drama everywhere he goes. Gasly is a solid driver, maybe not a great driver, but you know, a very good driver, I think, possibly still an underrated driver on some level, and of course French, so he's going to stay with Alpine. For him, probably makes the most sense for the immediate term, and I think this is probably a good move from either side. They still need a teammate though alongside him. Who's that going to be? The name that's actually jumping out now as the most likely option is actually Carlos Sainz. Now this seems kind of remarkable because literally a few days ago in Spain, we were pretty sure Sainz and Williams were going to announce a deal. But now it seems like that's not happening anymore because that deal got, you know, the announcement got massively postponed. And now the talk is that actually signing with Alpine is the most likely. He was very close to Williams, but he has now been attracted by a 2026 release clause offered by Alpine. So this is kind of one of the key points, that Williams and also Audi willing to offer good money, but the deal associated may be somewhat longer. There was even talk that Williams might be some sort of 2+2, where he would drive 25, 26, and then see about a potential extension, whereas it seems Alpine are more happy to offer Sainz terms that he may prefer. So, look, honestly, who knows? But, yeah, apparently the same article from L'Equipe that talked about this claims that Gasly would renew, and that's now happened. So, look, it's from the French press. I guess we'll see whether this occurs, but I will say Sainz's delay on announcing anything does make it more likely that he's changed his mind or another opportunity has come onto the horizon. And, you know, let's not forget, Flavio Briatore comes into Alpine, and apparently his first port of call was, we got to sign Carlos Sainz. And then it seems Alpine have gone out there and they've tried to make that happen just as Sainz was about to put pen to paper with probably Williams. So intrigued to your thoughts on that, because a Sainz-Gasly partnership in Alpine would be really interesting. And look, they're probably not going to be where they say that they're going to be in terms of a contender over the coming years. we know what Renault are like and Alpine are like, and there's potentially other future with their organisation because there's talk about no longer being a works team, right? They're going to be a customer team potentially to Ferrari engines or something of the sort. That was a talking point in the press today as well. But nonetheless, of all the options on the grid, are they theoretically going to be one of the more competitive of the seats available? Sure, they're going to be in the midfield. They're not going to be at the back of the grid like Audi, Sauber will be at least next year, and Williams still are, even though they are making some progress. Williams are trying, though, to convince Sainz. They actually signed, I think, maybe Alpine's one of their top guys. We'll have a look at his name actually in a second. But they've unveiled a number of new recruits, and certainly Williams, the CVs and the signatures coming their way are more substantial than many other teams in a similar position. So it's, Matt Harmon, that's right, formerly, I think, of Alpine, who is joining as their design director. And they've got loads of other names that they're bringing on board. I think they say they've signed 26 engineers from various teams to really ramp up their development over the next couple of years. So Williams in the medium term is a team to watch. But I think for Sainz, maybe he feels like, is there better options in the shorter term? Maybe, but I still feel like that Williams option is going to be reasonably attractive. There's also been talk about which drivers are going to be out of the grid. It seems like Guan Yu Zhou will probably be gone after, now 3 years in Formula One. This season, he's just not really been good at all. And unless he can bring like insane money to the table, it feels like probably that's no longer going to happen. Zhou says we're waiting for Carlos to sign. And even Joe Soward in today's Green Notebook was kind of saying that, Zhou staying is probably not going to be happening. But he also said this yesterday. Now, look, Joe Soward, his reputation or his record when he says stuff like this is not exactly 100%, but he does tend to know a thing or two about what's going on at the paddock. And he says Lawson will be in for Ricciardo at some point. I would guess the end of July. So there are rumours. We talked about them yesterday based on Marco's comments, and Ricciardo came out today and said, oh, well, I know not to listen to the rumours and all this stuff, but there is a general feeling that Ricciardo might be out for Lawson mid-season, and that may be the way that it is for next season and beyond, or that may be just a way for RB to make their mind up on what they do next year. But this does seem like a likely possibility, so stay tuned for more updates on that over the coming weeks. Quickly on Ferrari, they need a big bounce back weekend. They had a tough time out in Barcelona compared to expectations given their upgrades. They also had a tough time from an individual perspective because Leclerc and Sainz crashed into each other at turn 1, and there was all sorts of drama after the race. Leclerc, though, calms it down. He's always good at doing this from a PR angle, right? We came back on the same plane. We had a discussion. We know each other so well for so many years. After the race, there's tension, both in the heat of the moment, disappointed with each other. Then we speak and it's all good. I'm not worried at all for our relationship going forward. So we'll see if there's any more on that. The problem for Ferrari is that their car might not be that good. Leclerc does say that the performance is there in the car, the upgrades have worked, we just need to optimize the package. The feeling is there's another, tenth and a half in the package than they were able to unlock back in Barcelona. But it must be said, they've been regressing over the last few rounds. Last year was a bit of a turning point, it felt like, for Ferrari, because they turned up to Japan last year at the end of the season, brought an upgrade that worked, and they were very competitive. Could well have won Las Vegas towards the end of that season. Leclerc did a stellar job during that Grand Prix, and they were just really competitive from that point to the end of the season. So Ferrari, for the first time in many a year, really actually had impressive mid-season development. This year, though, again, there is a concern it's kind of back to normality, even under the Vasseur era of Ferrari, where their mid-season progress doesn't really add up to what they want it to add up to. Now, Leclerc does say there are fewer long curves here, so their car will be better than it has been, let's say, at Barcelona. And it's not like it was a good track for them last year. And obviously 2022, Leclerc was in a pretty good position to win that race before what famously happened then. The concern, though, for Ferrari is that apparently, according to rumours, they're already looking at changing their suspension design for next season. And this is kind of indicative of a wider problem with the car. They struggle with the softer tyres in qualifying, and there's talk about whether the bouncing is affecting them again. But the Ferrari 677, so next year's Ferrari, I think this one was the 676, is changing the design of both suspensions, front and rear. Now, they've gone for 4 years now, 22, 23, 24, so 3 years of, I believe, the same suspension design, or at least the opposite suspension design to what the Red Bull use. The Red Bull uses a pull rod front suspension and a push rod rear suspension, and I'm not smart enough really to go into the advantages advantages and disadvantages of both. The feeling is, though, because basically every other team over the last couple of years has now swapped to the Red Bull model. I think Mercedes this year and Aston Martin, therefore, because they buy the Mercedes stuff, unveiled their own pushrod rear suspension design, basically following the leads that Adrian Newey set when he designed their suspension back for the 2022 season. The feeling is there is an advantage to be gained there. It might be marginal, it might even just be aerodynamic rather than mechanical, but the only teams on the grid now to still have a pull rod rear suspension, and they also, I'm pretty sure, use a pushrod front suspension, but I think the pull rod rear is one of the talking points, is Ferrari and Haas, who buy the Ferrari stuff. So there's a feeling maybe that just isn't optimal. And there's a concern, at least when I heard this confirmed in the off-season, when Ferrari were going to keep to their old suspension design, I was concerned about the Ferrari because I thought, are they missing a trick here? Do they believe that there's other elements that they can improve? And clearly they have done, but maybe they're just not at the performance ceiling potential that the McLaren is able to be at, that the Red Bull is able to be at, and who knows about the Mercedes. Now they are making progress in the field. And obviously it's a bit of a concern if you've spent 3 years on one suspension and then you change for the final year of the regulations. That offers up problems. So I think for Ferrari, they've got to prove to me and to the Tifosi over the coming weeks that they actually are going to keep making progress, as it has felt like Vasseurs Ferrari has been doing for the last couple of years. And I'm sure although Lewis Hamilton wants to beat them in the Grand Prix to podiums to potentially race victories, he would also want to ensure that Ferrari is still making good progress. But maybe the feeling is if they sign Newey, then all will be resolved and there will be no problems going into 2025 and beyond. Let's talk about Max Verstappen though, because he gave several comments today. This one was interesting on the McLaren, because the question has been, is the McLaren the fastest car? Is it still the Red Bull? Max said in Barcelona, no, we were not the fastest car, I was the fastest man. But basically is what he said, and this is the same reason why Toto Wolff tried his latest attempt to get Max to agree to go to Mercedes, as we'll discuss in a second. But as Max says, McLaren at the moment are very solid. They are good everywhere, every single track, which is kind of what the Red Bull was last season, apart from Singapore pretty much. Everywhere else, last year's Red Bull was basically like unbelievably good and super consistent. This year's is not quite the same story. And as he says, the McLaren's good everywhere. I think you can see in Barcelona, they were very good on their tyres. That was the other real strength of the RB19 compared to the field, that the tyre deg was just so much better on the Red Bull last year than like any other car could do. In 2022, it was also true, but the Mercedes that year, the W13 was actually really good on its tyres despite being rather slow. And frankly, treatment of the tyres is one of the, if not like the most important factor in Formula One, because if your tyres are, half a second quicker than the guy in front, doesn't matter if he's got a faster car overall. If you're cooking your tyres less because your car is more stable over a Grand Prix distance, you're going to be straight up faster. And that's what he says. They could just push more. They could push more on them compared to, I think, everyone else on the grid without digging that much at the end. The feeling was in Spain, as it was, there was going to be a lot of degradation affecting basically every single team in every single stint. That was true, but the McLaren, especially towards the end of the stint, was really strong on its tyres. And yeah, as he says, because even my last stint, the last few laps were a struggle, where Lando was definitely catching up a lot. So these are things that we've got to do better as Red Bull. Plus, of course, we've got the issues with the curbs and the bumps, the low-speed corners, basically. We've got to understand better for next year. So, Red Bull and Max are being quite clear here, especially Max, that no, their car has problems. The McLaren is better in certain ways, and there's reason to believe that Lando Norris, again, is, he's never going to be the favourite for a race while Max Verstappen and Red Bull are around, given their record over the last several years, but he's definitely right up there, right? Toto Wolff, though, the other day, after that Grand Prix, basically said, it's Max who makes the difference. He would look good in silver. I think actually that was, was it not the CEO or something, the Mercedes chief, who mentioned that Max would look good in silver. Not the best Photoshop I've ever seen here from Sky Sports F1, but whatever. You get the picture, right? That, they're trying to get Max to Mercedes, either this year or next year. It's absolutely the intention, and this is the only reason why Mercedes have not yet confirmed Kimi Antonelli as the replacement for Lewis Hamilton, is that they're trying to get Max. We know this to be true. Toto Wolff could not be making it any clearer. Of course, the question is, what's Max going to say about this? Is he going to say, you know what, Toto, I'm going to say nothing to do about it? Because as we said the other day, if Max really does believe that he is the man making the difference and it's not about the team so much, it's not about the car so much, then would he leave to Mercedes if he still feels like he can potentially win in that car, given that Mercedes are making good progress looking at next year and might have the strongest outfit, especially from an engine point of view, come 2026, where Red Bull are somewhat more concerned, it seems, about the progress of their engine project. That is the debate, but also Verstappen well understands that the pit stops, the operations, the strategy is also, and just the car in general, right, is also still on absolutely top form here this season. Max Verstappen, though, confirmed today that he's going to stay. But I will say the way that he confirmed it, well, he could have been a little bit clearer and concise and precise if he really wanted to be. So he was asked the question about the future. I have a long-term contract with Red Bull and I am happy with where I am now. So pretty clear cut, but he doesn't precisely say that he will fulfill that long-term contract. We are already focusing on next year as well, so that should say enough about where I drive next year. Now, of course, everyone's focused on next year as well anyway. The interviewer then kind of doubles down and then he says, I said we are already focusing on next year's car. If that is the case, that already says enough about where I am driving, with a little, probably smug grin on his face. So, basically he said, look, I'm staying at Red Bull, I'm happy where I am, we're working on next year's car, nothing's going to change. But, he could have been a bit clearer, could he not? If he really wanted to be, he could have said, look, I've got this contract, I'm going to fulfill the contract, no intentions to leave, no intentions to take up Toto Wolff's offer at Mercedes, I'm happy with my team, I'm happy with the progress, and etc, etc. But no, he kind of said, no, I'm happy where I am, but, if I'm Toto Wolff hearing this, I'm not thinking, oh, it's game off, Antonelli, come here, put your crayons down, let's get this contract signed or whatever. Like, he's probably not thinking that. If I'm Toto, I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe we can get this Max guy. So, intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. The reality is that more than likely, all of the big, silly season driver market news and rumours have been swallowed up by the Hamilton to Ferrari thing, right? I mean, it was unprecedented, Hamilton to Ferrari. The idea that Verstappen could move in the same off-season is, the chances, theoretically, are just so low that both of them would move. Would it make the grid absolutely spectacular for next season if Max was to go? And also, what would Red Bull do if Max was to go? Who would they sign? Loads of questions, but probably not questions they will have to answer based on the comment of today. But very much interested in your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Of course, they're getting ready for the Grand Prix. This is Mercedes rear wing check here as we are on Thursday. So yeah, rear wing Thursdays, it seems we're at today. And it's the same rear wing they used in Barcelona. So is that anything to go by? Who knows? But the Mercedes here was terrible last year, you guys might remember. But it was actually surprisingly very good here back in 2022. There was a chance that, they were going to get pole, right? Hamilton and Russell both thought they were going to get pole, pushed to the absolute limit, and both crashed out, if you guys remember, kind of famously during that 2022 situation. But this weekend, who knows what's going to happen? I am fascinated to watch. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.